at King James Bible University. I'm Elder Michael Johnson with the Lost Sheep of Israel. And today we're going to be finishing out, going through everything to try to get the precepts and making sure we're getting the precepts to Genesis and making sure that as we go through, we're getting a full understanding of exactly everything that is going on. So what we're going to do, we're going to start going through this and getting the understanding. And if you haven't had a chance that you have not picked up the file, please make sure you go over to themoad.com. Make sure you can get the file to where you can follow us through. Because we actually had a couple of emails where people was complaining, saying that I'm moving stuff over to where we're going to be showing things to where people can't see. However, we do have a class that we do run on the backside, and it's crowded, and that's something that's not going to change because it's only so many people we can let in there anyway. However, if you do not have the file to Genesis, and what the problem people are having is, we have people that's over here that want to just pull all the precepts, and then what they want to do is put it together as normal people do, put it together, and then what they'll do, they'll sell the book on their own doing what they do. That's one reason why it's security measures. If you don't do it, we can actually see who the people who's actually purchasing it, seeing what's going on through it. So with that, nothing's going to change. So we appreciate the emails, we appreciate all that. However, nothing's going to change from that because it has shown time and time and time and time again when we do things and people see things, most people try to grab a hold of things, and once they grab a hold to it, then what they try to do is pump it out as their self. Normally what happens. So what we do, we have people to where they go through, and you want to get the file, you get the file. If you don't want to get the file, you don't want to get the file. However, if you don't get the file, it will be having chapters missing and everything else on what we're going to precept to where the ones that actually got the file will have all the precepts. That's what's going to be going on. So with that, we're going to get myself out of the way. We're going to go over into, and we're going to start filling up this and look at what is going on and where we left off at. Because what we need to do, we need to understand what is going on all the time. We need to understand what the precepts are, and understanding precepts is our key to knowing what is true and what is not true. So yesterday we had left off at verse 22 of chapter 2, which we found out what the rib means. We found out what everything means in here and what the woman talking about the spirit and everything else, because we already have all that there. So what we're going to do, I'm going to copy this, and we're going to move this, and we're going to go to verse 23. And we're going to get that there. We're going to put that in there, and we're going to start moving down through. And make sure that you save it all the time. Please make sure you do that, because we don't want to get this to where we're getting this odd, and for some reason mine want to hold up, so I got to wait for this to finish. And I think that's not being connected completely through there, but we got that now. So, and what we're going to look at is where once he took the rib, and that's the spirit that he had given him. And now we got to look at that. And it says, and Adam said, what did he say? This is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. So what was taken out of man? That was his bone and his flesh, which was his spirit. And it was replaced with the Most High Spirit. What happened? How do we know this? Because the same thing is when you go up to Genesis in 27, we know clearly here where, so Yahweh created man in his own image. In the image Yahweh created he, him, male and female. So we know he did this at the beginning in 127. This is clear. So if he did this in the beginning at 127, how is it that people believe where he did this here, where he took a rib and he took of his spirit and had taken from man and made he a woman and brought him unto her? So the same thing when you look at verse 21, understand how it's saying. And Yahweh, God, caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And the connection, he took one of his ribs, his is his. That's all he's saying. He took of his rib. Who? His. And that's what he gave him. And closed up the flesh, instead meaning substitute or equivalent. So he gave him his spirit. That's all he's saying he did. And most people will sit there and mix that up. That's what they like to teach. That is what they like to teach, and that's not the truth. The truth is what is going on and what happened. We have to look at it, and within the scriptures, what he's saying, we have to find all definitions that is within scripture and get the full understanding of exactly what is happening. So here it says, and Adam said, this is now bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. So, bone and flesh is what? Is what? We have to understand what this means. And we have to understand what that means. Because bone and flesh means to many people many different things. But what it's saying is this: same spirit and that's what it's saying. Meaning what? He gave him the same spirit that he has. And that's the only thing that can inherit the kingdom of God. That's the only thing that can inherit the kingdom of God. Our flesh and our bones cannot. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, but his spirit can. His spirit that he's given you can. So we need to understand some of these. Let's go to Genesis 49, verse 2. Why we got to go there? Because we got to go there. We're going to read it and get some understanding there. Because we're going to see where he makes the difference and shows the separation. It says, gather yourselves together and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. So we see here he was doing flesh when he first called them out. And then as he went to flesh, as he called them out, then you see he switched to spirit because he switched it to Israel, which his name was changed to Israel. You follow that? So he gather yourselves together and hear, ye sons of Jacob, according to the flesh. According to the flesh, this is without wavering, thinking about anything. They know according to the flesh, these 12 boys is his sons Jacob. But the Most High tells you something that is very clear. If you obey my voice and keep my covenant, you will be a peculiar treasure unto me. That's a spiritual covenant that you need to make, and you have to hearken, listen unto Israel, your father. Just because you're Israel, sons of Jacob, that name was changed, doesn't make you Israel of the promise. Do not at no time make you Israel of the promise. But many people think it does. Let's look at another one. We got to see this in we're going to look at Judges 9 and 2. Actually, I need to change that because I wrote that one completely out. So I'm going to have to change that to what we want to do. So we got to go to Judges 9:2, and we're going to see what that says. Judges 9:2, and it says, speak, I pray you, in the ears of all men of Shittim, whether it is better for you either that all the sons of Jerubbaal, which were 70 persons, reign over you, or one reign over you. remember also that I am your bone and your flesh. What is that saying? What is that saying? That is completely telling you, which is telling that Jeroboam is of the same relations to them. He's kin to them. That is his brother. That is their brother. I am of your bone and your flesh. They're making this clear. They are related. That's making it clear as day for you. We're going to look at the other ones, and we're going to keep moving through here. And we're going to look at another. We're going to look at 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel 5 and verse 1. We're going to look at 2 Samuel 5 and verse 1. And these are, for clarification, these are precepts that give you clarification and explains what the verse is saying. It's telling you when you say, and Adam said, this is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman. He has accepted the Spirit of God. That's all he's saying. That's why he's saying it in that manner. Then came all the tribes of Israel to David in Hebron. So all the tribes of Israel of the flesh came to Hebron and spake, saying, behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh. This is talking about the relationship between them. This is the relationship between them. So we're going to move forward, and we're going to start getting even more understanding, because remember, we have another verse going to clarify it even more. We're going to go to 1 Chronicles 11 and verse 1. 1 Chronicles 11 and verse 1. And it says, then all Israel gathered themselves to David. Dang, they're saying the same thing. In Hebron, saying, behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh. And you see the repeat where a lot of stuff is always repeated in Chronicles. A lot of stuff is always repeated in Chronicles. But that's just letting you know that is a double verse. So when you have that, sometimes you can put a dot right there, and that lets you know that these two are connected. So something to do, and some people might do it, some people might not do it. But when you have two that's right there, that lets you know those two are connected. So let's go to Ezekiel. We're going to go to 37 and verse 7. 37 and verse 7. What do that one say? Well, let's see what that is saying. And it says, so I prophesied as I was commanded. And as I prophesied, there was a noise, and behold, a shaking, and the bone came together. Bone to his bone. What is this saying? What is this saying? He prophesied, and there was a noise, a shaking. And the bones came together, bone to his bone. So when he prophesied, he's speaking the words of the Most High. And the spirit came together to his bone, meaning the relationship. Meaning the relationship that came together. Most people will sit there and give you all kind of other nonsense, but we have to remember, this is the biggest problem that people have in the Bible. And what is that? They like to philosophize stuff and make it so outlandish to where when you try to understand something, and they done told you so many different things and went through so many different books, and once you get it, you're completely confused. And then you go somewhere else, you get more confused because somebody else sees it another way. Why? Because they didn't use the same commentary that this one used, and you shouldn't have been using commentary in the first place. Let's look at Ezekiel 39 and verse 15. It says, "And the passengers that pass through the land, when any seeth a man's bones, then shall he set up a sign by it, till the buriers have buried in the valley of Hamongad." What do that say? Until they are buried in Hamongad. What is that saying there? You can see right there where they show you right here what is going on there. Hamongad. That's what you want to understand there. Hamongad. That shows you what's going on there. That shows you what's going on there. That's why you want to see what is happening there. Hamongad. That's a place. That's why I want you to see that. That is a place. What is this saying? This is a spiritual place. That is a spiritual place. We have to understand when those bones come together and it shows the sign, we have to understand what is going on. Hamongad. And if you look below that, you'll see, and also the name of the city shall be Hammon. Thus cleans the land. So we have to understand what these words and what they are saying, what they mean. Let's look at another one. We're going to go right there through it. We're going to look at John. Let me see. No, I got better to do it this way because I have to put something else there. Let's go to John. And we're going to look at this, and it says, "For these were done that the scriptures should be fulfilled. A bone of him shall not be broken." Meaning what? We have to look at both sides of this. Why? Because it's going to tell you quite a bit. We know that the seven spirits of God, that's one side, you're going to look at it. The other side is that the scriptures had to be fulfilled, showing that none of those bones were broken. None of these bones are broken. Meaning what? If any of those bones is broken, and now we're talking about the spirit of God bone is broken, that means that flesh and blood broke the spirit of God. Now it's starting to make, that's why we looked at, and I wanted you to see Hamongad. It's important. Why? Because if you can break the bone of God, that makes no sense. So that's why I said, and none of the bones shall be broken. None of the spirits shall be broken according to the flesh. Meaning what? None of the spirit of God should be broken from the flesh of man. This is why we really need to understand what's going on. And that's why it even says, and these things were done that the scripture should be fulfilled, that a bone, giving you the same thing in heaven, he wanted the same thing on earth. So the same thing, that none of the bones was broken on Yahushua, should none of the spirit of God be broken either. Now it's getting closer. Now it's getting closer, and it should show you more of what it was saying. Now it's getting a lot closer in what it was saying to where you can understand what was going on. And this is why you do that. So what you doing here? you want to do here, and actually now I see why I did have that there, because that was right. I didn't put, my apology. So it's saying the Spirit of God it's good to look at my notes, and I don't look at my notes sometimes when I'm talking. So I do apologize, but I couldn't figure out why I put that semicolon there, and then as I'm talking, and then when I go to look, and then I see my note, and because I'm explaining the verse, and I should have been looking at my notes and explaining to you the verse, and I didn't do that. However, that's all this John 19:36 was saying anyway. Because it's telling you the Spirit of God shall not be broken. That's what it was saying. And we want to look at the woman. We want to look at the woman. And what is this saying? The woman. What is this saying? Isha. Equals what? You have to capitalize that one. Isha. Why? Because woman, she should be called woman, meaning what? You see, that's the flip side. Because it's not saying woman equals Isha. That's all it means. So how are we going to make sure we understand that? If Isha means woman, and it says Isha, that is my husband. You follow me? If he brought Isha to us, remove that. He's bringing us his Spirit, in that who brought that to us is our husband, Isha. Most people sitting there, I still don't quite understand that. Don't worry, we got some verses that are going to help us out. Isaiah 1:1. Isaiah 1:1. Let's see what that says. Isha, the vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, saw concerning Judah. The vision. Concerning Judah and Jerusalem. Concerning Judah and Jerusalem. The days of Azariah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, kings of Judah. Meaning what? These are concerning things of our husband. This is concerning things of our husband. What? Judah and Jerusalem. Watch this. We have to put these here so you will not be lost. We have to put these here so you will not be lost. So what is that saying? And it says, and he said, hear ye now, O house of David, O house of David. It is a small thing for you to worry men, but ye worry my husband also, my God also. You can worry men, but don't worry my husband. This is what's going on. How do we know this? Excuse me. We're going to go to Hosea chapter 2, verse 16. Hosea chapter 2, verse 16. And what do that say? Excuse me. And it says, and it shall be at the day, saith Yahweh, that thou shalt call me Isha. Isha. Understand what that means. Exactly what it was saying. Isha means that is my husband. So call me Isha. So when you say Isha, you saying that the Most High is your husband. Are you following me? See, this is the complex where people sit there and switch it around and think that it just means just a woman. And that's not actually what the Bible is saying. The Bible is telling you Isha means that the Most High is your husband. That's what it's saying. That is what it's saying. So, and it's saying, and she shall be called Isha. Why? Adam said, this is now bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called Isha. Meaning what? The Most High is my husband. It's clear. It's clear as day. Because she was taken out of man. He removed that stony heart. That was removed. He put this one in there. And it says, call me no more Bela. Meaning what? That is my Lord. Don't call me no more Bela. And you can put a caveat there if you want. And actually, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put one there, just to make sure. Let's go here and let's do this. Let's put in Isaiah. And I think it's 54 and 4. I think it's 54 and 4. I believe it is. If not, I'll go back and I'll change it. But I believe it's 54 and 4. No, it's actually 54. I'm one off. Not bad. It's 54 and 5. One verse off. But that's it. So we're going to go to Isaiah 54 and verse 5. One verse off, but we're going to have it. Can you excuse me 1 minute? Okay, 54 and verse 5. And it says, for thy maker is thy husband. Thy maker is thy husband. Thy maker is thy husband. So we have to understand what that is. The Lord of hosts is his name. The Lord of hosts is his name. So thy maker is thy husband. So Isha is our maker, thy husband, and the Lord of hosts is his name. So to get you more clarification, if some people need that there, that'll give you a little bit more clarification to help you out. And that's how you actually take care of that. And make sure that you save this to where we won't lose it. Make sure you save this. And we're going to move down and we're going to look at verse 24. We're going to look at verse 24. What is verse 24 is saying? It says, therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they shall be one flesh. And they shall be one flesh. What is that saying? What is that saying? Leave the flesh and That's what it's saying. And actually, I need to do this. And I forgot about that. We need to bold that. And I'm going to bold this one too. And we're going to bold this one. And I need to encompass this one and bold that. So we have leave the flesh and cleave to the spirit equals spirit, family of God. When you worship him, you must worship him in spirit and in truth. And this is what he's talking about. So if he is part of you, he is your head. Because he is your husband. So he is your head. Are you following me? You see how it's everything, it was connected even here when you're looking up what Paul explaining. Everything Paul says is, he really never even uses his own words. He just eloquently put it in another format to where he can tell it to us to get it. Even though it was still complex the way he did it because many people teach him wrong today. However, he was saying the same thing here. The same identical thing here. I'm going to go ahead and move this up. But it was the same thing. Because if the Most High is your head, that's why he tells you in Romans 7:1, for the law hath dominion over a man as long as he liveth. And if the Most High is your husband, he is a forever living God. Think about that. Think about that one. Let's look at some of this and help get this explained out. Because we need to understand that. We need to understand it. Let's look at Matthew. And we're going to look at 12, 49, and 50. 12, 49, and 50. What do it say, and what can we get it to understand? What do it say, and what can we get it to understand? It says, and he stretched forth his hand towards his disciples. Who? Yahushua. He stretched forth his hands to his disciples and said, behold, my mother and my brethren. Behold, my mother and my brethren. Why? Because if you have of the same spirit, you are his mothers and his brethren. Period. Same spirit, because why? You're married to your maker. You're married to your maker. But watch this. For whosoever shall do the will of my Father. Whoever shall ever do the will of my head, my husband, which is in heaven, the same is my brother and my sister and my mother. This is how it actually, where you can get it, all the understanding, and understanding what he's actually saying all the time. Because this is, people will, actually I'm going to do that one. Mark, and I'm just agreeing because I was going to actually write it out. I'm trying to get in the habit of not doing that. Because I wouldn't mind abbreviate, and actually I got to go up and do the other one on another one. Let's go to Mark chapter 3, verse 33 through 35. And it says, and he answered, saying to them, who is my mother or my brother? Because who is his family members? Who are his family members? That's why it's saying, who is my spiritual family? Who? Who are they? Who are my spiritual family? That is his question. And he looked around about on them which sat about him and said, behold, my mother and my brother. How did he come to that determination? He came to that determination based on the spirit that's resting in you and letting the spirit be the head. You letting the spirit be the head of you. You have many people who sit there and say the spirit of God is the head, and it's not. It does everything contrary to it. Everything they do is contrary. Everything they believe they want to do, contrary. Contrary to what the head of their life supposedly is commanding them what to do. Why? For whosoever should do the will of God, the same as my brother, my sister, and mother. That's why. Many people is not going to do that. I don't care what you do. They're not going to do it. They'll sit there and they're going to philosophize why they shouldn't do it, or they're going to use the liberty of the law and not do it. Meaning what? Liberty of the law just means they taking liberty to where they're going to choose laws that they want to adhere to and throw away laws that they choose not to. Liberty of the law. Besides keeping the whole royal of the law, which is all of it, they break it up and they use liberty and they pick and choose what they want. Liberty of the law. Let's look at verse 25. And we're going to see there. So we're going to see, and it says, and they were both naked. They were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. What is that saying? They were both naked and were not ashamed. Were mean the stated position that they was in. Were mean the stated position that they were in. That's why you have to be in the will of the Father. And they were naked and were not ashamed. Meaning what? Meaning what? Let's look at this. This is the problem that people don't even know, and they teach differently. Naked. Meaning what? They were in sin. Right there. They was in sin already. Naked. They was already in sin. They was in sin back here, and they weren't even ashamed. What was the heart for? What was that spirit given for? To bring them to remembrance. That spirit was bringing them to remembrance that they was in sin. That's why he gave them the spirit. To show them that they were naked. But they didn't do that. They sought afterwards, which we're going to get into later for chapter 3, which I believe majority of chapter 3 will not be shown openly. But they was in sin already. Meaning what? Genesis 3:7. Genesis 3:7. Let's look at it. Let's look at it together, and we're going to see what that was saying. It says, And the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Why? See, what the serpent told them wasn't the issue. That's the whole catch about this whole thing. See, because the serpent told them two things. He told them two things. He gave them two doctrines. The serpent gave them two doctrines, which was the problem. Because one of the doctrines was the problem. Let's look at this. And we are this before we get into it, but we're not going to go down into that part. But that was the problem. Verse 11. And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. I was naked before, and I wasn't even ashamed. But now I'm naked because I had a problem. And he found out that that problem wasn't what he thought it was. And he said, and watch what the Most High said. And he said, who told thee thou was naked? See, who told you you was naked? See, this is what they ate. Who told you this? Hast thou eaten of the tree thereof, whereof I commanded thee thou shouldn't eat? That's what they ate. That's what they learned of. This is what they learned of. They learned of that. They learned of that tree. Now we see what's going on. So he's telling them, didn't you ate of that tree? So even if you go down here, let's go up to 16 something. Let's go up to 16. We're going to go to verse 16. It says, and Yahweh God commanded the man, saying, so he's telling him something, of every tree of the garden thou mayest thou mayest freely eat. Why? The tree is spirit filled, but then freely eat is just learning and teachings. So if they was teaching something, why in the world they wasn't ashamed? But then when he come back on the scene, and they was embarrassed and they was afraid, so they hid themselves. Why did they hide? Why did they hide? That's the clincher right there. That's the nail biter of all things. Because he asked a plain question. He said, who told thee thou was naked? And then he immediately even told him what was going on. Hast thou eaten? Have you learned of the tree of that spirit whereof I commanded thee thou shouldn't not eat? That you shouldn't be learning from. He's telling them plain as day. He already know what they did. And the first thing even he said, even it's not in there, he said, and the man said, the woman whom thou givest, really? The woman whom thou givest to be with me, she gave me of the tree and I did eat. Meaning what? Meaning what? That's a clincher within itself. But we can't get to that till we get down to the verse. Because that's the catch. That is the catch. Let's look at another one, and we're going to move down here and find out what's going on. See, many people think the Bible is full of these fairy tales, and because they didn't taught it in that manner, and that actually not the Bible is plain as day. It's very plain. All we got to do is know it according to precepts, and we will be fine. And it says, and when Moses saw that the people were naked, wow. Because that's what it was, naked, and they were not ashamed. But Moses seen that the people was naked, for Aaron had made them naked unto their shame amongst their enemies. So how can it be naked here and people sitting there saying they was just free of sin and they was cool about it and they wasn't even ashamed, and you go over here and looking at Exodus, and now Moses saw that they were naked, and then they was naked to the shame of their enemies. So how can over here in Genesis naked mean one thing, and then you get to Exodus, naked means something else? Are you seeing the silliness that they teach? Are you seeing the silliness that they teach? I know you see it. But what we have to do is understand on what they did. We have to understand on what they did and how they do us. Because many of us have taken up and believed on what he was saying, and we not looking at what they was doing to us all the time. They was teaching us a lie for us to eat and to swallow up and everything. And they make it sound good. It sounds so good we just ate it up. And it was a bold-faced lie. And you're looking at that right there in Exodus 32 and 25. And Moses saw that the people was naked. Why? For Aaron, his brother, made them naked unto their shame. And there isn't there. But it says unto shame among their enemies. So how can over there be naked, meaning good right here in Genesis? How can this be cool here, and then it gets in Exodus, is bad? See, because if he really was operating in that manner, in that fashion, we'll always be confused. We'll always be confused. Because we'll never know which way he's going. We'll never know. So we have to look at some more to hone in on this naked. We're going to go to 2 Chronicles 28 and verse 19. 28 and verse 19, and let's look at the verse. It said, for the Lord brought Judah low, and Yahweh brought Judah low because of Uzziah. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said Hezekiah. Uzziah, king of Israel. I mean Ahaz, I am so sorry. Because of Ahaz, king of Israel. He brought him low because of Ahaz. For he had made Judah naked. You see that? Ahaz made Israel naked. So what he did? And transgressed sore against Yahweh. So he transgressed against Yahweh. Doing what? They sinned. They clearly sinned. That's why he's saying that. He made them naked. He made them naked. That's all he's saying. He made them naked and transgressed in the sight of the Most High. Let's pull a few more. We're going to look at Job. We're going to go to Job 121. Job 1 and 21. And it said, and said, naked I came out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. And Yahweh, the Lord give, and the Lord taketh away. Bless the knowledge be to the name of the Most High. What is he saying? A baby born of a few days is full of what? A baby born in a few days is full of what? Are you following me? See, this is what we got to do. A baby born of a few days is what? Is what? So this is why people sit there and they look at Job like it's crazy, but Job says the same thing in Job 14 verse 1. Man that is born of a woman in a few days is full of trouble. This is what the problem is, and we're not looking at it. This is what the problem is, we're not even looking at it. Let's look at it a little bit more. 26 in verse 6. 26 in verse 6. And it says, hell is naked before him. Hell. And destruction have no covering. In destruction have no covering. But he covered them. See, they were both naked and not ashamed, but he later covered them. So we have to understand what he's saying all the time. He has another one. We're going to look at Isaiah 58 in verse 7. 58 and verse 7. We're going to see what that one says. It says, it is not to deal thy bread to the hungry, and they that bring the poor that are cast out of thy house. When thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thy own flesh. That was pretty heavy what he was talking about. That was pretty heavy what he's saying. Because it's saying before you take that spick out of someone else's eye, you make sure you get that big old log out of yours. That's what he's actually talking about. But we need to understand more on what's happening. We're going to look at the last one. We're going to look at Matthew 25:36. 25:36. Put the wrong verse there. Matthew 25, verse 36. It says, naked, he clothed me. I was sick, you visited me. I was in prison, you came unto me. Meaning what? In sin, you covered me. In sin, you covered me. In sin, you covered me. When I was sick, I was deranged out of my mind. You visited me. I was in prison. I was in bondage of sin. And you came unto me. That's all it's saying. That's all this is saying, but we need to understand what the Bible means all the time. And if we don't know what it means, it's going to just put us more and more and more into deep not understanding what the Bible is saying. So we want to make sure we understand what the Bible is saying all the time and not sit there and do guesswork and look at it saying something else when it's telling you exactly what it's saying all the time. We have to do our due diligence and actually understand what this stuff means. And that's what we're not doing. We love to sit there and we love to do everything else but study the Bible. We're quick to go to a dictionary and look at what naked means today, and we get the understanding of today on something he's saying back then, and he meant what he said back then. His word don't change, so we have to understand what he means. So we're going to end it right there, and we'll pick it up. We'll pick it up tomorrow, but we're going to find out verse chapter 3. We're going to be jumping and skipping in there because all the verses are not going to be there, but everybody who actually has the file, they will be sent based on the email system that you're given. So we're going to be going through this, but a lot of this stuff that we're going to be going through, we're getting foundational precepts where you're getting a complete understanding of the Bible. This is something that you can't even find nowhere. Why? Because they give you relationals when you go get those Thompson Chain books and all that, all them other ones from Harper and everybody else. They give you relationals. They don't give you the meaning of the verses. The verses that they give you gives you a track pattern on what they believe and what they think is true. So all the verses that they putting in there and they lining you up with do not mean what the verse is saying. That's where they confuse you. This is why sometimes people say the Bible is very confusing. Why? Because you have to get to their theology and basically how they think to where you're going to understand the way that they line in the Bible out. Besides understanding what the Bible is saying and look at the precepts according to that to understand what those words actually meant when he said it. Technically, that's what's happening. So until tomorrow, I'm Elder Michael Johnson, and we'll pick it up and we're going to be going into verse chapter 3. And we'll start from there. So until then, I say to each and every person, shalom.